The first of which is the Supreme Court affirms religious liberty in favor of public high school football coach that was punished for praying after games. Now, I've known about this story for quite some time, and what I would like to do, very similar to Roe v. Wade, is do a little bit of backtracking on how this got to the Supreme Court in the first place. Because when you hear this story and what this school did to this man is just baffling and head spinning. So you had this coach named Joe Kennedy, who was an 18-year Marine veteran, and he was an assistant coach of a high school football team. And before every game that he coached, he went and prayed out on the field to give thanks at the conclusion of each game for what the players had accomplished and for the opportunity to be a part of their lives through football. And what a great way to practice your religious freedoms by doing such a thing. So after the whistle of his very first football game in 2008, he took a knee and quietly prayed, thanking God for his prayers. His quiet, private prayers, that's important, lasted about 15 to 30 seconds, folks. He continued this practice after every single game for 7 years. So he'd been doing this for a long time, doing it on his own, nobody coming up to him or nothing, just in private. And after a while, what happened was that students started to notice what the coach was doing. And they asked him if they could join him in prayer. It wasn't that he went and publicized this. It wasn't that if he was going up to them saying, hey, you need to come and do this, and forcing them and coercing them into doing anything. They came up to him and asked if they could be a part of it. And he told them, hey, this is a free country. You could do what you want. So the players elected to gather with their coach after the games and pray with them. And for those that are new to the Bald Brad Show, or heck, even if you're a frequent viewer, I am a professional ice hockey referee. This is not uncommon to see a private Catholic school, high school team pray after the games. Sometimes they even pray before games. Furthermore, they'll even bring a priest to pray before games over the speakers. And it wouldn't be uncommon to see a non-Catholic high school or a non-Christian high school praying after the game with a Catholic or a Christian high school as well. Meaning you have a non-Christian and a Catholic or Christian school praying all together. Nobody's forcing them to do it. This is something the players elect to do. But as you can imagine, the left are going to get all up in arms about this, which is what happened to this coach here. So after 7 years of praying, you had an employee of a different high school take notice and go to his high school principal and tell the administration that this person has a big disapproval with what the coach is doing. So you didn't even have any employee or anybody from the coach's actual high school that he was employed by getting all up in arms. It was somebody else from a different high school that reported this guy. So the high school administrator expressed disapproval to Coach Kennedy, prompting the coach to post on Facebook, quote, "I think I just might have been fired for praying." So what the school did was say, hey, look, you can't be doing what you're doing. You need to, in other words, go and basically do it extremely privately. And this was exactly what the district had to say here. They said, the coach could engage in religious activity, including prayer, so long as it does not interfere with the job responsibilities. The activity is physically separate from any student activity, and students are not allowed to join such activity. Even if they elect, even if they want to do it, they cannot. So basically what he started to do was just do his thing privately. And that still wasn't good enough. He was still put on leave. He still got in trouble for complying with the district's demands. And so obviously, as you can imagine, he got some legal counsel and it got taken all the way up to the Supreme Court. So on Monday morning, current day, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled in Kennedy v. Bremerton School District that a public high school football coach in the state of Washington had his First Amendment rights violated after he was placed on administrative leave by the school district and banned from participating in the football program for praying on the field after games in view of students. I would also like to point out, as a hockey player for 25 years, we prayed in the locker room. It is extremely common to see football players pray before every single game. And they're going to sit there and target this guy for praying on the field by himself after he met your demands, and you're still going to do this to him? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Quote, SCOTUS sides with a high school football coach in a First Amendment case about a prayer at the 50-yard line. SCOTUS blog tweeted Monday morning, quote, in a 6-3 ruling, SCOTUS says the public school district violated the coach's free speech and free exercise rights when it barred him from praying on the field after games. The case was ruled along ideological lines. Absolutely right. Isn't this crazy that we live in 2022 and you have this type of stuff clogging up the system in the Supreme Court where you got a guy minding his own damn business for 7 years, praying on the 50-yard line? And this is the type of cases that have to be brought up to the Supreme Court. Do you think there's a little bit of a problem in our society here? Do you think there's a little bit of lack of knowledge of what our Constitution says? This is what happens, folks, when you remove civics from the school system. They don't teach this stuff anymore. And if they do, it is extremely baseline and or manipulated by these leftist activist teachers that are teaching it in such a way to where now you have other people going out there, seeing somebody pray on the field, minding their own damn business, and reporting it and now getting somebody potentially fired, suspended, or let go from the school. And can't even perform their job, which you'd imagine, what the hell does prayer after a game have to do with your duties? Your duty's done basically at that point. What are you supposed to do? Sit there and recap the game for your players, which you could do at a different date and a different time, which you most likely will do with video. But I digress. Unbelievable. Well, the majority opinion was authored by Justice Neil Gorsuch. He said here, a government entity sought to punish an individual for engaging in a brief, quiet, personal religious observance, doubly protected by the free exercise and free speech clauses of the First Amendment. And the only meaningful justification the government offered for its reprisal rested on a mistaken view that it had a duty to ferret out and suppress religious observances, even as it allows comparable secular speech. The Constitution neither mandates nor tolerates that kind of discrimination. Well, see, the left don't understand that, which is why they're all up in arms about this. You know, yeah, they're up in arms about Roe v. Wade. Yeah, they're up in arms about the New York law that was disposed of by the Supreme Court regarding conceal and carry licenses. They're up in arms about all this because nothing is going their way at this point, because you finally have justices that go in, originalist, contextualist, that look at the Declaration of Independence and don't want to inhibit people's freedom of speech, do not want to inhibit people's Second Amendment rights. They actually want to look at U.S. history, see how it was formed, what was the original author's basis for enacting that amendment, and then applying it today. But then you have these 3 justices on the Supreme Court that can't seem to do that. And so the leftists are losing their mind about all this stuff because they're seeing that the religious right is winning, that the crazy leftists are losing. And so now they're taking to the streets, their heads are spinning, saying all a bunch of nonsense. Joseph Kennedy, a Marine veteran, again, was the assistant football coach. He's all stoked about what's going on because, hey, he gets his First Amendment rights to practice what he believes in. And folks, he believes in this so much that when they actually told him that he couldn't do this anymore, meaning pray, he stopped doing private prayers altogether after the game. And when it was first enacted, he was driving after the game. He couldn't do it. He couldn't actually get home. So he reversed and went back to the field when it was closed and made his way into the stadium and went on that 50-yard line and prayed by himself with nobody around. That's how much this is a man of faith. And he couldn't just come to grips with allowing a government entity to stop his right of exercising his First Amendment right. Kennedy's private religious exercise did not come close to crossing any line one might imagine separating protected private expression from impermissible government coercion, Gorsuch wrote on Monday. Learning how to tolerate speech or prayer of all kinds is part of learning how to live in a pluralistic society, a trait of character essential to a tolerant citizenry. Now, this is important here because our whole foundation of our country is built on a moralistic society, but we are losing that. There's been news that we're losing more people in effect of not believing in religious freedoms, religious rights, freedom altogether, Christianity, Catholicism. America is becoming less religious in effect. And you're seeing how it is taking an effect on our country and our society and the way that our social fabric is tearing now by these types of cases being brought up to the Supreme Court, which is mind-boggling. But that's not going to stop the left from acting like a bunch of nutsos and crazy and taking to the streets, and not just the streets, but Twitter, and lying about this case. I mean, blatantly lying. And I read you very specific parts and told you about very specific parts of the case to prove that Ilhan Omar, this leftist, going out on the airwaves and lying, just blatantly lying about this whole thing. This is what she said on Twitter. The Supreme Court just ruled that public school teachers can pressure students to join in prayer at public school events, but can also retaliate against those that don't join in. Religious freedom is dead in America. Thankfully, you have Ted Cruz that said literally every word of this is false. 100%. Just look at how the left manipulate, they lie, they slander, they do all sorts of things, and their people just full-heartedly believe in it. Now, I understand there is that case to be made that the right, Trump's base, which maybe I'm a part of because I love Trump, are a part of it as well, but a lot of Trump's base could say, hey, yeah, he says some knucklehead things, but hell, I love what he does. His actions, I love. He can say whatever the hell he wants. I don't think he should, but he can. And you know what? I'm fine with that as long as those words don't always turn into action. Meaning if he says something stupid that I disagree with, I hope that he doesn't turn it into action. But what they do, the left, they say stupid stuff and they turn it into action. Or they say one thing and then do the other. Meaning they say, oh, well, I'm pro-America, I want to drill more, I want more oil production, all these things. And then you go, well, I'm not going to increase oil domestic production. We're not going to put on more regulations on oil companies. But then your actions do the complete opposite. You put more regulations on oil companies. You shut down oil rigs. You shut down refineries. You shut down the Keystone Pipeline. You do all these things. So you speak one thing and do the other. Again, that's fine if you speak one thing and do the other. But when you say one thing, and then when your actions prove to be bad and actually hurting the economy, actually hurting America, that poses a problem. Where Trump said it's something asinine, but his actions helped America, made America a better place. So again, Ted Cruz calls her out for this. And the Congresswoman's first claim accused the court of allowing teachers to pressure students to join in public prayer. In contrast, the ruling was limited to coaches' ability of freedom to pray publicly. And if you heard, the students came up to him and asked him to pray. He didn't go out there and start freaking basically campaigning and having people join him. No. None of that happened. But she's going to sit there and espouse that as well. So according to First Liberty, which represented Kennedy in the case, on September 17, 2015, Superintendent Aaron Lavelle sent Coach Kennedy a letter informing him of the district's investigation into whether Coach Kennedy had appropriately complied with the school's board's policy on religious-related activities and practices. The school noted that Kennedy had not actively encouraged or required participation. That's according to the district themselves. The same people that had a problem with doing what he was doing are saying that, hey, you know what? He didn't sit there and encourage any of this. But Ilhan Omar is going to take to the airwaves and push a bunch of false crap, which is typical from the Democrats and the progressive left. Omar also claimed public schools could retaliate against students who don't join in prayer with teachers. The ruling did not offer any information, folks, regarding the treatment of students for a school staff member who chose to personally pray at the conclusion of a football game. Nothing. Zip. Nilch. Nada. The Congresswoman's conclusion that religious freedom is dead in America is the opposite of the case's conclusion itself. Kennedy instead acknowledged that the court ruling is in favor and was a win for religious freedom. It's not dead. It's going the complete opposite direction. There is a case to be said that it is declining, not religious freedom itself, but the aspect of Americans practicing and believing in some sort of faith. It's not dead. That went in the right direction. You should be stoked about this. As a politician that's supposed to represent the freedoms and abide by the Constitution, should be stoked about this. But we all know Ilhan Omar's true beliefs about America. It is amazing to me that she is elected, very similar to AOC, Bernie Sanders, all these people that basically want to destroy America from the inside out. They won't acknowledge as much, and maybe they might not even believe that they're doing it, but their words and actions prove otherwise, that they continually get elected. Like there's people, there's not many of them, but there's people that vote these knuckleheads in, and they're voted in by other knuckleheads, and these knuckleheads go from state to state and move because they vote in these same policies that destroy those states, so they want to go to Texas, Tennessee, Florida, these red states, and enact those same policies that they did from the place where they're coming from and destroy that place as well. And they can't figure it out, folks. They can't wrap their head around any of this, of how America is going in the wrong direction in certain aspects. And they blame the Republicans for it. They're enacting these leftist policies that are generated from the left themselves because they were voted in by the left. And they think that it's the right. mean, we just did a whole clip on a lady that was blaming inflation and blaming all these things in terms of the economy, immigration, all this stuff on the religious right. I mean, you got to be some next level dumb to think it's the religious right that's creating all this when you got a guy in office that literally doesn't know his name, doesn't know his wife's name, doesn't know how to get to the Oval Office. We've seen that clip before where the Secret Service is telling him, hey, go right, and he goes straight. I mean, remember, he was vice president for 8 years. He knew how to get to the Oval Office. Secret Service literally has to direct him. And they're directing him on all levels of his life. There was a card that he had, and he accidentally showed it because he was reading the back of it. And it gave him step-by-step instructions on what to do when going to a meeting. It told him, enter the room, take your seat. It's like, it's amazing that it didn't tell him, take a breath, breathe in, exhale out. It is astonishing. Can you imagine if that was Donald Trump? Can you imagine? When Donald Trump was in office, there was a whole freak out by the media and the left because he was drinking water and his hand was shaking a little bit. A little bit. And they lost their shit. But yet you have Joe Biden falling upstairs, fighting with his teleprompter every week, forgetting what the question was when it was just asked, forgetting losing his train of thought, falling on a bicycle while standing still, hitting a golf ball backwards when it's supposed to go forwards. That is just a few of the many gaffes that this guy has had in a year and a half. He has more gaffes than freaking George Bush did. And you would think there'd be more coverage on this, but there's not. You would think there'd be more of a demand from the left and the media saying, hey, you know what? We had this whole ideology about Trump and hypocrisy, about his medical condition and how he ate all this fast food and drank Coke every day and all this stuff. But there's not shit, excuse my French, but there's nothing about them pushing this whole idea that, hey, maybe he's not all there. Maybe he's in a cognitive decline. Maybe we should have some sort of test that be shown to the public that, hey, this guy's really suffering. Like, he's going in a really wrong direction. Everybody sees it, but the left doesn't want to acknowledge it. So again, you have Ilhan Omar going and saying a bunch of nonsense, which is typical. Hell, she should have a spot on The View now that I think about it. She should be a co-host on The View. Unbelievable. It's incredible to know that I did nothing wrong. Everything I did was fine. That comes from the coach himself, and good. So to have that kind of support of the Constitution and to still have faith, not in God, but also the country itself, that you are still able to practice your religious freedoms out there in the public without having to lose your job. So Ilhan Omar, just the other day as well, took to Twitter and espoused more controversial views by saying it's not pro-life if you oppose gun violence prevention, oppose universal health care, oppose affordable prescription drugs, oppose the child tax credit, oppose paid leave, oppose universal child care, oppose free school meals, and support endless wars. I mean, this lady, very similar to what we say on The View, just goes out and just says a bunch of crap. And there's like no thought. There's no actual synapses going off. And it makes me wonder if she just writes this and just typing away. Like she's having her little like fit at the time, you know, maybe she didn't have her cup of coffee, or she just woke up in the morning on the wrong side of the bed, which she does probably every day with her panties in a bunch. It just goes and says a bunch of, and just spews caca. It's like when you come home from a hard day, you know, and your loved one it's just spewing a bunch of crap that happened at work. You're like, for the love of God, we get it, but shut up. You know, she just continues and continues. So that's the left for you. Gonna rub the shoulders of Joe Biden through the media, allow Ilhan Omar and others to get away with stupid stuff. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.